Hey, everybody, it's your buddy Admiral Teag, and I'm here with my friends Sean Carter, Resolute German, JTKirk, and I'm going to be a guest on my own show and turn it over to Sean Carter. And Sean is going to ask us questions about a classic Star Trek episode, The Doomsday Machine, which is
Yes.
a fan favorite for a lot of people, and we're going to test out a new Star Trek Matrix. So, Sean, take over. You're the host.
Okay. So basically, what this project is a way for us to personally rate what Star Trek episodes are the best. So everyone can identify their top 5 or their top 10, top 15 Star Trek episodes. But when it gets to the nitty-gritty, when we get to talking about what's the best one, what is the most impactful one, what one meant the most to us, it's really hard for us, even as diehard Star Trek fans. In fact, the more of a fan we are, the harder it is for us to actually pinpoint our favorite episodes. So, with that in mind, I created this matrix spreadsheet to score in the most objectively method possible. The way to identify what Star Trek episodes mean the most to us. Without further ado, what we're going to do is ask us a few questions about each episode and try as best as we can to objectively grade each episode for these categories. So the categories are humanity and optimism, science fiction ideals, story, adventure and exploration, characters, relevance, and our personal or subjective miscellaneous ideal. Basically, this last one is a catch-all.
The objectivity list has a little bit of room for a subjective feeling. You're allowed to
Right.
have a feeling. Because that goes along with like my Star Trek should be fun.
Yes.
Affirmative.
If you personally just love the episode, the Spock's brain, for example, you just like it for whatever reason, this category here allows a person to upscore or downscore a grade by a full letter, 10%.
My mom's the brain lady. She did Nimoy during the shoot, man. He's my real
Right.
dad.
So in this video, everybody, we are going to analyze Admiral Teague's favorite episode, The Doomsday Machine, to see what score it receives on a subjective or as close to a subjective viewpoint as we can determine. So here we go.
Can you hear the people fighting out in the street?
Oh, they're horrible.
It's closing time.
All right.
Go for it.
So we're going to go with Admiral Teague, and we encourage Germ and JTKirk, and I myself will chime in. But for this video, we are only going to record Admiral Teague's viewpoint.
Wow. Okay. Let's go.
Humanity and optimism. This can represent itself in various forms, from an overt reference to humanity learning from its mistakes, to the overall attitude of a character or an idea presented in an episode. So, Admiral Teague, for the Doomsday Machine, does the episode represent optimism for humanity?
It's an 11.
Okay,
It's an 11.
Why. We're going to go
It's
10,
10.
but let's say why.
10.
She was attacked by what appears to be essentially a robot.
All right, listen, we have the Vulcan point of view represented by Spock, who is not human. And at that point, although we know he's half human, he's not being very human in that episode, although he's in character. He feels that the Enterprise cannot beat the Doomsday Machine, and that the Doomsday Machine is a threat to the Enterprise. Therefore, the only thing to do is very binary. It's very logical, but it's very, very brutal. It's that it goes outside the interference of the Doomsday Machine and sends a message to the Federation so they can gang up with like 6 Federation starships and destroy it. And that is a sound plan that will almost definitely work. But Matt Decker is human. And Matt Decker is not going to let Spock do that because he is not going to let that Doomsday Machine destroy Rigel. If he doesn't stop it, that thing's going to Rigel. That's an exact quote from Matt Decker.
That thing is on the way to the heart of our galaxy. What are you going to do about it? Take it easy.
And I would bet you that there is a statue on Rigel of Matt Decker in Constellation City, where there's like a statue of the ship as well, and they meet in like Constellation Hall. And I would, because Matt Decker stood up and put 2 starships at risk to stop the Doomsday Machine from going to the heart of the Federation, and the heartlessness of logic was overruled by Matt Decker's emotional humanity. He was a human in the best and worst ways. He was the madman who was endangering Jim Kirk's ship, but he also, in his last human moments, in his human guilt, in his human self-loathing, in his human desire to stop what was happening beyond all his power, his deep humanity. And I invite you all to imagine this happens to Kirk. Imagine it was Spock and Bones and Uhura and maybe not Sulu, but Chekhov and Scotty down on that planet. And they're like, they called me. They were begging me to beam them up. Imagine that happens to Kirk. Would he have done any different than co-opting someone else's ship to destroy that damn monster? But it was also the right thing to do. It's that he's so human.
So in essence, Deckard is displaying what Kirk would have done if faced with the same situation.
I think Kirk would have gotten it back together in probably a one-man attack on the Doomsday Machine before anyone else got there, honestly.
The same humanity, the same soul, the same desire, the goodness that Kirk did.
Anytime a Federation captain is killed in the line of duty in an episode, it's always a great episode.
Okay. So 10 out of 10. Let's get Germ and JTKirk.
Sure. So I don't think my answer would change the score anyway, because I would also award a 10 for this for all of the reasons that Admiral Teag so eloquently enumerated on. So with that, the only thing I could say is I don't think Kirk would have ever broken down anywhere near what our crazy Commodore did. I think that if he had faced the exact same situation, it may have taken the episode in a slightly different direction, but it would have simply just shown the differences in how humans tend to react under conditions of stress. So that's more of a what if more than what did occur. But I think just showing the Commodore losing it is a great way to just show how tremendous stress can impact a human. So there you go.
Awesome.
I give it an 8. I'm not as enthusiastic as the two of you gave it, but to the same point, Commodore Decker did not represent humanity very well. Not very optimistic the way he was going, because he was basically going to get everybody killed. His intention wasn't anything beyond revenge. He'd gone completely crazy. He didn't want to save the Federation. He just wanted to get revenge for his ship and crew.
He still is the only reason all those people on Rigel survived, though. So, it took humanity as a whole. The other people holding them back, keeping them from destroying the Enterprise, his desperation in taking the shuttle because they disempowered him. He was removed at the right moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. As a whole, they do pull together. That's why the score is still an 8. But him by himself drags the score down a couple points because he is the worst humanity has to offer.
I respect your score. I have passion for this, Ken. I don't view Commodore Decker as villainous.
No, he's not villainous. Corrects the mistake he made.
It's more what Picard says. It's possible to do nothing wrong and still achieve a poor outcome.
Right.
Because he did everything right. He's like, I did the right thing. I beamed them all down. Captain, last man on the ship. That's how it's supposed to go in regulations.
Yeah, he goes, that's what you're supposed to do, isn't it? It's what you're supposed to do.
Regulations. Yeah. He's Commodore Decker.
Yeah, it's what you're supposed to do. So he's not villainous because he has a sense of self-sacrifice.
Here's the thing. We talked about music before. The Doomsday Machine. Has anyone noticed that it's the Jaws theme? They never use that again.
Yeah, you look it up on YouTube. The Doomsday Machine.
Some of the greatest sound effects too.
Oh, it's great. Okay,
the engines.
Does it represent good science fiction? We just spent 5-10 minutes discussing this subject. It is a good science fiction ideal? Out of a 1 out of 10, does it generate interesting discussion?
It's a 10 because it's a primitive AI, but the AI is super primitive. It has a proximity field that it attacks within, and it knows how to home in on fuel. It seems to be
Okay.
capable of no more than that. It came from another galaxy. Who knows if another one's going to show up?
It's not intended to be used. It's public, right?
So Relic, they fought the war that they built it to avoid. They're
Yeah.
gone, but it's still here.
Yeah.
You
Great
know what?
science
Who
fiction.
knows how many civilizations? Just like one day the Doomsday Machine showed up. It's like,
Germ
you better not come here.
I'd give it a 9. I would really only award a 10 in the case of an extremely hard science fiction concept that you might associate more closely with like a Twilight Zone episode than you would this particular case.
But this episode
However,
births a new hope.
A little
yeah,
better
this thing
than
was
that.
no moon; it was a space station. With the ability to destroy a planet being insignificant next to the power of the Kirk. A decade before
That's true.
Star Wars came out. I give this a 9. It's by no means a bad score for that at all.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll go with the 10 because it is solidly
Yeah.
sci-fi in its nature. It's not very deep sci-fi, but it is sci-fi.
It's deep enough. It gets kids thinking about computers and AIs
Sure.
in the 70s and 60s. So, I mean, the
Yeah.
futurism is strong. We still haven't caught up to this level of futurism. We might be almost there. I mean, we can't destroy a planet, but like an AI
Right.
that can do these kind of things is just about capable of it.
Right, which I will preemptively enter a 10 for relevance on there. We'll go to the next. The next question is story. Is the story
10.
engaging, believable, and concise?
It's a 10.
Yep.
James Doohan should have had his name added to the credits at the beginning, honestly, with DeForest Kelly's. If he had had performances like this every week, we find out that he's a really powerful actor. They sell all this future ship repair. I absolutely believe they're repairing that ship. I absolutely believe Scotty is jury rigging everything. I absolutely believe that the people who go on that ship are working hard to get it up and running. And I absolutely cannot keep track of how many people beam off. So I think they leave one guy on the ship. If you're really strict about it, you're one of those people who's really finicky, like less people beam off than beam on. So, I mean, I'm not going to give it a hard time on that one. But yeah, if you really want to be honest, then we might have lost count of how many people beam off the ship. But it's nowhere near as bad of a mistake as like modern Star Trek, where we'll have somebody go 10 dreams deep and we don't know if they've come out of the dream ever because they've gone into too many dreams within a dream, within a dream, within a dream, within a dream. And by modern, we mean after 2009.
Okay.
I don't want to say the word.
Next category. The adventure and exploration can be interpreted in various ways, from actual adventurous stories, and exploring. Do Kirk, Spock, or McCoy learn something?
We all learned something, including Matt Decker.
The commander is responsible for the lives of his crew.
It was one of the most exciting and enjoyable stories. I think it's a 10 on this one. Jim Kirk learns that humanity, life finds a way. He also learns, that a little bit of chaos theory can change the game. It's just like the Galileo 7, another shuttle that did something unexpected that changed the outcome of what was going to happen. They're supposed to be on their home turf. That's what's frightening about the episode. They're heading out to do more exploring, and they come across one of their other ships wrecked. The next system in is one of theirs. They're like, what the hell's going on? We had never seen a sister ship to the Enterprise before then. This horrible monster ship that's like, this monster machine that's like eating planets. It's the most horrible technological monster ever, and it has the music of Jaws, and it's like the monstrous shark from Jaws, and even they have to get a bigger boat in the form of getting the Constellation running to take it out. There's a lot of Jaws in this.
I agree.
Come on, they're like within sight of Earth. Like they're not that far away. It's just
they
the problem
discover
is
something from another galaxy.
They didn't go exploring, but the exploration came to them, so it's still a 10.
Yes.
In
Okay.
fact, it's a really huge fucking problem. It's like we need to give all our attention to this
Right.
new thing that's just showed up. It's bad.
Right. Okay. Germ and JTKirk.
9, because it's just something they ran into that there wasn't really much exploration for it. This came and sought them out.
Yeah, I was going to look at this from the perspective of exploring the human condition, and so I would give this an easy 10.
Okay.
Yeah. Matt Decker's
right.
madness and slight recovery. Why did we really shoot him up with all those space drugs? Like maybe there was more space drugs to calm him down, and maybe we should have sent 5 or 6 people with him to sick bay. Like Matt Decker was out of his tree. They should have been a lot more afraid of him.
They would have put this guy in quarantine. You're gonna have a psych eval.
My
But-
only in-world explanation for that one is, how about this? That's war. They had the guys they had to
Right.
take care of it. They were getting him off the bridge. They're in the middle of a battle. He's already put them behind the 8 ball in several ways. Spock needs to start undoing all his
Yeah.
damage now. And McCoy has to start acting as XO, which is not totally out of character, but he's still the medical officer. It should be Scotty, but Scotty's on the Constellation.
And it does stand scrutiny with the way you explain it. Like this is unheard of. This is,
And we can't stop it.
It's a new situation.
Absolutely messed up one of our ships. It swatted one of our strongest ships. We spent a couple of seasons talking about how tough these Constellation class starships are. It just swatted one of them like a fly. It's barely alive.
It does suit ethical consideration.
No one ever gives a shit that it's the last of its kind. They're like, we have to destroy it. And Spock's like, hell yeah.
He followed protocol. He stayed on the ship. He was the last guy on board. He wasn't a coward by any means. He was not a coward. McCoy showed integrity by saying, like, I haven't had the time to run an examination on him.
The fact that he shot him up full of drugs would have made him unfit at that moment.
True.
He doesn't need to examine him to know that I gave him like a really he was in a catatonic state and I pulled him out of it.
But he did clarify it though. He goes, I haven't had the time to run an evaluation on him.
He would have been default incapacitated until he runs the proper tests on him.
While this conversation is going on, the Doomsday Machine is playing cat and mouse with both starships and causing a problem. And Decker is making the same mistakes again. And we find out like the Doomsday Machine's other weapon was a passive weapon. It's got a vampire field around it where like if you get too close, you start to lose power and shit like that. There's a conversation about how they can't attack it a certain way. And he wants to keep going. And that's the only way Spock is able to pull him off. There are no totally perfect stories unless there's one about a man who files his taxes and then gets the correct amount back. You know, like we see him like with every deduction, like pull out the receipt, like smile, like write it down, like in real time. And like the sequel comes out like 6 months later and it's 10 minutes long. He just pulls out, gets the check in the mail.
Yeah.
Or looks at his phone, it's been deposited in his bank, he smiles, and then that's like the end. Finn. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a small flaw in a great story.
Characters are the key in any Star Trek story. The score rates how well the episode uses characters.
This is the most true to character episode of all. Like Kirk is pure unbridled Kirk. Scotty is there fixing stuff like you wouldn't believe and being like a little bit witty and a little bit dedicated and very inventive. McCoy is the most McCoy he's ever been. He yells a couple of times. He snaps his fingers in someone's face. Spock is the most Spock you could ever get. He's like relaxed and in control, even though things are terrible and horrible. It's like a pilot. You ever hear those pilot transmissions? It's just like, we got a minor problem. Both wings fell off. The fuselage is on fire, and we're going to explode. Yep, that's an explosion. That's like it was that level of detachment from Spock, and he's just like, if you continue, we will all certainly die. If that is your course of action, it is proof that you are insane. And just these great confrontations. It's like logic versus raw emotion, and it's just like there's elements of 2001: A Space Odyssey with the machine that's just like killing and killing and killing, and then there's also elements that they bring forward into Star Trek: The Motion Picture, because the Doomsday Machine is one aspect of the threat that V'ger poses.
Matt Decker and his son Will, which we all know,
According to the book by
yeah,
Gene Roddenberry. But
and
Gene
we all know,
Roddenberry disavowed the books. So do we know? We know.
we
It's
know,
Decker's
but
son. It's his son.
Matt Decker he has those human impulses, right?
Yeah, he
Wrong.
sacrifices himself
Well, at the
in
end,
a
yeah, at the
way.
end, it proves to be right.
Something comes of his self-sacrifice.
Yeah,
I always say we're stronger with you than without you, which is a line
right,
from the Doomsday Machine when I make a
right.
pitch for people to join the channel, and hit those like and follow buttons. But we're stronger with you than without you is something that Kirk says. He's like, Matt, listen to me, Matt. You can't do this, Matt. You're a starship commander. We need you. And then responds with, it's like, I know I have to do this. I've known it ever since what happened to my crew. Kirk's like, Matt, listen to me. And he snaps it off.
Your experience, your judgment, Matt.
And we hear the snap, but we don't see his hand, right? Cuts back to the bridge of the Constellation, and Kirk is like, Matt, you can't do this. Listen to me.
We're stronger with you than without you.
It's because Decker knew that Kirk was right. His heart was set on what he was doing. Because then the next thing he does is open the windows so he can really drink in how bad what's going to happen to him is. But he really doesn't like that thing. I'm effusive about that part of it. I thought it was great, but
so I would say 10, right?
10.
It's
10.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. Because my wife came home. Yeah, she came home from the Post Malone concert.
Oh, cool.
I don't like the guy, but no, she went with
yeah. I liked him when he was pre-Malone. I'm post Malone now. Like it's over for me with Malone.
I just liked the normal Malone, the
normal
Malone. Yeah.
That brief window when he was Malone.
Yes.
The brief period of time. He's like Han Solo, right? Like Han Solo was an idiot who I could kick the crap out of until the point where he was like a cool as hell drug dealer who wasted people and got the girl, and then they froze him, and when they unfroze him, he's an idiot again. It's like, I don't know. It's a very narrow window of coolness.
Nice. Okay. So for relevance, like, would you give this a 10, 9, 8, 7? What would you give it?
Relevance? Not very relevant to anything in the real world. Not even at the time, because it's
not even
an autonomous
really an
weapon.
AI.
Yeah,
it's not even quite an AI. It's the part where it can seek out the planets to go after. Like it looks for things to fuel up on, but otherwise, unless you enter its field, it won't attack. It's really simple.
Yeah, it's a freaking oversized Roomba.
Yeah, it's on-off destructo machine.
See, that's where I give it a 10 relevance, because it doesn't matter what piece of technology we're talking about. It's important to understand the impact technology has on us. Right.
Think about all the broken arrows on Earth. We know that here and there, like there's been accidents where like a nuclear armed bomber had like engine trouble and had to drop its unarmed but still very usable nukes into the ocean. It's a statement on that, because Kirk is like, it's for a war that was fought long ago. They're gone, but the weapons they made still endure. And it's like, we've made these weapons, push a button in 10,000 years and they might still work.
Yep, I have to give it a 5 for relevance.
See, I give it a 10 because it's a warning. Look at the capabilities of our phones. If you took one of our phones, just one of our phones, computing power, access everything, and you took it back to 1992, you could wreak havoc. You could create such chaos. And I think that's what this episode is trying to say as far as relevance is. Technology
it really does a poor job in that for me. I still have to give it a 5. It's
Okay.
not enough to take you out of it, but it just completely irrelevant. It doesn't affect the story, but I can't give it any positive credit for that.
All right. Last category, Admiral Teag.
On just really quick to Germ's point, I think of necessity, the Doomsday Machine has to be a relatively simple robot monster, because with even a moderately sophisticated AI, you're talking a nearly unbeatable thing now. It's almost unbeatable with just instinctual robotic instincts. Sensor field, I must feed. That's the only thing it knows. If we gave it even like the most rudimentary functional AI, it might have been unbeatable.
But I'm saying a Roomba is smarter than what that Doomsday device was.
True.
All they had to do is get out of its
All
range, and it would disengage from them and go to the next thing it wanted to consume.
Yeah, and they
Well-
weren't smart enough to do that.
If they were to rewrite this story to modern day tropes, how would it look?
It was.
We
It
have
had a
smarter-
radio dampening field.
Yeah, but we have too smart of AI to actually fit into that story.
Mhm.
It's not as advanced as us.
Well, here's the thing, though: it wasn't built by us, and we don't know how its capabilities may have eroded. It's millions of years old.
Mm.
They would have had to do a better job explaining that.
Interesting. Something I just thought of. If you put the M5 in the Enterprise when it encountered the Doomsday Machine, what would happen?
Ooh, well, this unit
Or-
must survive, right?
Yeah.
It would have probably assessed it faster than anyone else. It would have gotten outside the radio dampening field and warned people in the way Spock wanted to.
It would have launched all shuttlecraft to explode to slow it down, and it would have escaped to warn the fleet.
Great music for the Constellation too. It's the only other Federation ship I can think of that has its own theme music, and it plays its sad, melancholy tune. And then, like when it goes back and starts to attack the Doomsday Machine, it starts to play it really proudly and defiantly again. And it's like
Yep.
some of the best music in all of Star Trek. Really helps that story.
Really was its own score.
For the relevance part, I looked at this as what is the main theme from the human interaction or the human condition, and it's one of disaster, one of working together to support somebody who's going through that, and all sorts of theme around this type of a consideration and what will happen to you if you were to go through that. And we feel many different ways about Admiral Decker, who is very human. He's not a replicant at all in this. To forgive the pun on that.
Yeah, no, you
And
got to figure
so-
that he's
Mhm.
got his name on every document that ever endorsed James T. Kirk, for the last few years, right? Probably instrumental in getting him his command. I mean, he was the implication with him is that Commodore Decker is in command of all 12 of those 5-year mission starships, the Constitution classes.
Right. So to cap it off, I would give it a 10 as a relevance because, well, we all hope we never have to go through that level of disaster. But
You never
we'll
know. I mean, we could
unfortunately get
see.
to choose that.
I saw
right?
this movie Moonfall. I mean, it could happen
Mhm.
to us.
Well, right. I mean, there's all types and kinds and shapes and forms of disaster, and you hope that you don't have to suffer through that. But like I said, we don't get that choice, and so we're all uniquely susceptible to this situation, no matter what our best efforts could be to prevent it. So, yeah, I would give this a 10 out of 10.
This is everything I watched Star Trek for. The stakes are believable because at the end, it's really just one person. It's like, will we save Captain Kirk? If this Rigel could be destroyed, and I would be upset for the Federation, their reactions. But if like everyone on our ship survived, we heard like, well, we lost Rigel, I'd be like, well, that sucks for Rigel, but like our heroes are alive. But on this one, like only Captain Kirk was trapped on the Constellation at the end, so it was like, we were gonna save Rigel. His plan was good enough. Excellent use of music, excellent everything. The attempt to beam him up, the spaceship acting, the metronome, all that stuff, the great music, the music of the Doomsday Machine, selling that shorted out transporter pad the way that we sell trying to start a car engine, making it that believable. The engine sounds of the Constellation, you know, the revving and the loss of power, and then would rev back up, and the uneven nature of it. And then finally, the explosion, you know, in the original, it's still amazing. And the death of the Doomsday Machine and beaming off Captain Kirk and the way he comes jumping and running off that transporter pad is just the greatest Star Trek ever. It's a 10.
Yeah. I can't argue with that.
I give it an 8. Is never one of my favorite episodes. I found it all
Really?
very predictable. I never bought into any of the drama or any of the danger. It's still pretty good overall, so I give it an 8.
All right. 8, 9, and 10. But Teague's is the
It's
important
10s
number.
across the board, I think, here, right?
Well,
It's
I
easy
think you
math.
gave it 100. Wow.
Yeah, but this is quintessential perfect start. It's a perfect
Yeah.
episode of that type. It's a monster of the week, but what a monster. It's not really a bottle episode, but we retask our sets and save money and put them into some of the special effects. We have a great story, and our ticking clock is only at the end, and we don't overlap ticking clocks. We just have a problem with one of them. So it's perfect. Like the plot devices are applied great. And again, listen to the Doomsday score. If you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, Google the Star Trek The Doomsday Machine original score. The whole thing is great. It's listenable. It's 25 minutes of original music there, maybe more. We should just talk about what the other episode we rated and just say what the final score was for another one for comparison.
I believe we talked
Fusion.
about Fusion from Enterprise
Yeah,
Season
it was
1.
Fusion, right?
Yes.
There we go.
We give
Here
that
we
a
go.
57.69.
Compared to the Doomsday Machine at 100%, that is a 57.69% story.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite make the grade. It's not quite a 65. It's not quite passing. It's not up to muster of even a mundane Star Trek story. It's just interesting enough. It's a 5.5. So it's like on the overall do no harm. It's just barely not hurting.
It's
acting
almost
out
a
in
D.
class. It's smoking cigarettes and not coming to class. That kid needs a
Yeah.
phone call to its parents.
It's like, okay, I'll watch next week. We'll see what happens.
We'll go to another planet next. That's the episodic beauty of Star Trek. It's just like I didn't really like Jerm was saying with the Doomsday Machine, like it never really got him. It was a good enough episode. Hey Jerm, did we go to another place next week that was probably more interesting to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of the episodic part of Star Trek. That's an amazing Matrix. I really enjoyed running that one. Well,
I was very proud when I came up with this. So.
Up against the Admiral Teag one, really quick for the Doomsday Machine. Episodic, about an hour, good enough for regular TV. The Federation, good, no gender problems, so say we all. We go to planets and mostly explore and know what a freakish thing comes to us. We care about Starfleet, yes. It's military. They were very military in this one. It's fun. Oh my God, was that fun? It should visualize scientific ideas. It totally did. Their tech level can't be below ours. Their tech level is on par with Final Frontier tech level. Crew must be mostly moral. Only Spock was a little bit in the gray area. Probably would have been relieved of his command, and he might have had a letter of reprimand for the heartlessness of his decision. Because Rigel's supposed to be a major system. There's a lot of planets in the Rigel system. We hear numbers from 4 to 8. It has a huge habitable zone. We might even hear of a Rigel 11. Whereas Kirk, and to a greater extent, Decker, like Kirk picks it up from him. Kirk is like, we have to fight this thing here with what we have now, and that's the only thing we can do. And the part where you do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do is what makes Star Trek great. Friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice at the end.
Yep.
It's great.